realized it was unpopular to kill people because they're black. Instead, they started calling them criminals. And you can justify a murder. Criminal is the new black. Good morning.
Meet Lee Merritt. He's a prominent civil rights attorney for the Ahmaud Arbery case. As you know, Ahmaud Arbery was the 25-year-old African-American jogger who was stalked, hunted, and assassinated by a pickup truck of armed white assailants while one of them filmed their unlawful pursuit. After chasing him down, they cornered him in their vehicles and shot him dead in the street like it was hunting season. Then, the assailants, with the assistance of the legal apparatus in South Georgia, were allowed to go home and kick up their feet for 2.5 months without even being arrested. William Bryan, Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael. Remember, 64-year-old Gregory McMichael is a disgraced ex-officer who was forced into desk duty again and again after being stripped of his badge and gun over and over again over the course of 14 years, unlawfully presenting a badge for 8 of those years. After he was stripped of his badge, his gun, and his police vehicle again in 2019, he decided to retire. At the time of his retirement, he didn't even have legal arrest powers. 8 months later, with no badge or official police gun, Gregory McMichael decided to pick up his shotgun and hunt down a black male jogger. That jogger was Ahmaud Arbery. Even though unarmed Arbery was the one assassinated, big media also decided to assassinate his character. That's when attorney Lee Merritt stepped in. Often touted as the people's attorney, in fact, CNN regaled him as one of 4 attorneys people call when African Americans are killed by the police. He and attorney Chris Stewart had a press conference where Merritt said that criminal is the new black. Let's have a listen.
First, I want to thank the NAACP for standing with this family. Long before I was involved, long before Chris Stewart was involved, this family received the support of the local NAACP and the national legal apparatus. This organization has been a safeguard for the African American communities, is, as they often say, the oldest and the boldest civil rights organization in the history of this country. And their partnership with this family has meant a great deal, especially when they started listening before the video was released. They started listening before anybody else cared. They started listening when it was just Wanda Cooper and Marcus Arbery fighting for justice for their child and trying to get the world's attention. So thank you all so very much. It means the world to this family. Ms. Cooper, who would love to be here herself, sends her great gratitude that you all continue to stand with her and fight alongside of her. A lot of people have asked, why are organizations like the NAACP involved in a private killing? This was an unfortunate circumstance that the national media has blown out of proportion, that race was not involved. Just because the assailants were white and the victim was black, that didn't mean that they attacked him because he was black, but they suspected him of a crime. We often hear that in the black community. We are often told that we are unfairly imputing race on a narrative, that we are race baiting. It is important to know what each of the previous speakers representing this great organization said ahead of me, that this is not constrained to the events of February 23rd. The injustice, the greatest injustice in this case was not only the brutal murder of Ahmaud Arbery, but the response by the legal apparatus of South Georgia. They responded as if his life didn't matter. And in George Barnhill, the district attorney who first really got involved with this case, in his words, he explained why. And it was because Ahmaud Arbery was black. He said specifically in a letter to the Attorney General of Georgia that Ahmaud Arbery was no stranger to the criminal justice system, that his family and friends were no stranger to the criminal justice system. And in common parlance, what the American culture has started to do, they realized it was unpopular to kill people because they're black, so instead they started calling them criminals. Criminal is the new black. And if you can impute criminality on the mundane, like jogging down the street, then you can justify a murder. Yesterday, one of the attorneys for one of the suspects in this case, William Bryan, stood in front of the national media, and he tried to make his client the victim. It boggles the mind how he was able to make the jump to say that his client, and I quote, was unarmed and afraid after watching the video that his client took of Ahmaud Arbery as they pursued him through the Centilla Shores community. The reason he was able to make that mental jump is because he doesn't see race. And people in this culture today have decided that that is a good thing, not to see race. We want you to see the race of Ahmaud Arbery. We want you to see the blackness, and we want you to see when things like this happen over and over and over again, it's happening to black people. And when it's justified, when a young woman is playing video games with her nephew at home and she leaves the door open, and they call her a criminal and they go in and shoot her to death in Fort Worth, Texas, we want you to see the race issue. And we want you to see why her playing video games with her nephew was seen as criminal. It was because of her blackness, that she was living in a black community. When Botham Jean was shot to death in his home eating a bowl of ice cream, the woman who came into his home, into his place, said that he was a criminal. She suspected that he was a criminal, and she used that to shoot him to death. And people said, where was race in this case? Criminal is the new black. And over again, the black community has been called criminals. Barbecuing, criminals walking down the street, criminals jogging. Ahmaud Arbery has been in the media today. They continue to release new images attempting to criminalize Ahmaud Arbery, the victim, when the criminals remain William Bryan, Gregory McMichael, and Travis McMichael. And so I thank this organization on behalf of this family for seeing Ahmaud Arbery as the victim that he is, and calling the criminals, the people who murdered a jogger on video, what they are. And I'm going to turn this conversation over to my esteemed colleague, Chris Stewart. Thank you.
We had the chance to speak with Vice President of the NAACP Atlanta, Attorney Gerald Griggs, and he weighed in.
Well, the reason why the media assassinates the character of black victims is because of the continued victimization of black bodies. And it feeds into the narrative that the victim deserves the action that occurred to them. And we have to break that cycle and give back the humanity that was denied in their life back to that victim in death. And so that's why it's important that we put the truth forward, we put the facts forward, and we make sure that we give the humanity that was denied in life to that individual in their death, and the justice that we must achieve. So we must hold the media accountable as well as the courts accountable to a full depiction of what actually happened and a factual determination based on the law, which will result in justice, which is a guilty verdict.
When we asked him about Merritt's statement that criminal is the new black, this is what he had to say.
I definitely agree that criminal is the new black. I think that the over-policing in our communities and communities of color have disproportionately incarcerated large numbers of African Americans when the crime rate is continuing to go down in African American communities. If you look at the FBI statistics, homicides and thefts and armed robberies are all down in the African American communities. The FBI statistics speak directly to the fact that murders and robberies and assaults happen more proportionally in majority communities. And I think the media stereotype is the only thing that's feeding into the fact that people have this perception of African Americans and other people of color as being the criminals. If you just look at the data, it cuts against the narrative that big media tries to play by criminalizing people of color.
There was a show on Netflix called 7 Seconds, and without giving away any spoilers, the police were involved in the death of a little boy where they were clearly in the wrong. And they showed us step by step how to paint the narrative of criminality in the victim as to create doubt or even the shadow of a doubt about whether or not the victim was to blame for their own death. It's kind of like a magic trick. While you're looking at one hand of what the victim may have done, you're not looking at the other hand of what the assailant actually did do. And poof, the narrative is shifted. So this is your homework assignment for questions to answer below. 1. What are your thoughts on the sentiment that criminal is the new black? 2. If we know that this is the game they play, why does society fall for it each and every time? 3. Even if a person smoked a little bit of weed or made mistakes in their past or were even suspected of committing a crime, does that warrant a pack of wild vigilantes to conduct unlawful executions with no due process in the middle of the road, just death penalty in some man's makeshift kangaroo court? And 4, what will it take for this senselessness to end? We want to hear your thoughts below. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you thumbs up the video, make sure that you subscribe, and hit the bell notifications to be notified of new videos. Leave a comment below, share the video, and come over to TonyaTKO.com to subscribe to my personal mailing list and drop me a message of a viral story that you'd like for me to cover. See you on the other side. Peace.